Hey, welcome to Gold's Garage. So, a week or two ago, I made a short video of this engine right after we took it out of the crate. And now I want to document, that's the reason I started YouTube, was to document my motors. And so I want to document this engine running, and I've had it running obviously. So, this engine is a CT350, and as I mentioned in the previous video, you can find it in the GM Performance catalog. This is about 4 or 5 years old. This one, there's a lot newer versions. You can buy it online, I think for $5. So when we were kids, the Sears Christmas catalog would come every fall and we all got all excited. That's like the Sears Christmas catalog for Chevy car guys, because it's got every little thing in there that you'd ever want to build a Chevrolet. So the point I'm trying to make is this engine's available right out of the GM catalog, the CT350, and the term I used last time was a 602. It's the same thing. 602, no, it's not the size of the engine. 602 is just the last 3 numbers of the part of the GM Chevrolet part number. And the 604, which is the upgrade, the next, which is the CT400, is once again the 604 numbers are the last 3 numbers of the part number. So a couple things I wanted to show. So what we've done with this engine, belongs to Trevor Collver Motorsports. So I take care of his motors, as I mentioned before. And so he bought this engine in a crate last year, and it's not much use in a crate. So we had to get it on the test stand, get it running, break in the camshaft. It's got a flat tappet camshaft. And so it has to go through the same procedure as any other flat tappet camshaft. And I've done that. This engine has run over 36 minutes, and I'm going to show you how I know. Since I made the last video, I added an hour meter to my test stand. It measures in tenths of an hour, so that's 6/10 of an hour, so that's 36 minutes. So it works pretty cool. Otherwise, I always got to keep track of, which I try to do anyway, keep track of how much time the engine's run. So this engine's run more than 36 minutes. After the first 5 minutes, I shut it off. That's a cycle for the valve springs. Check the valve lifters, they're all good, no issues. I've checked them again after the 2 or 3 other runs. I break up the test runs in 5 to 10 minute segments, and that gives the engine the chance to heat cycle, cool down, and heat up. So the camshaft's broken in, the piston rings are not broken in, so we either got to do that on a dyno, or there's a procedure for doing it at the racetrack. And depending how much of a hurry we're in to get this thing going, right now he has a good engine in the car. I made a video of that back in January. We dynoed that engine, and it came out really good. So this is strictly a backup engine in case something happens. These are very, very reliable engines. When you buy them, as I mentioned before, it says maximum RPM 5,500 from GM. They're not warranted anyways, but the racing rules allow you to go 6,400 RPM, so guess what we do? We go 6,400 RPM all day long. So, and they manage to stay together. The bottom end is fine. The valve lifters are the weak link in the engine, and we change them out regularly to make sure that they don't fail, because if they do, you're not going to have a very good night. So all that's been done. The valves have been checked. This thing's ready to go. A couple other things that are different from a race car engine. Once again, there are street versions of this engine, but this one is a race version. So we have on this distributor and a race motor, we do not use any vacuum advance, nor do we use any centrifugal advance. So this distributor is locked in place, and we started up at full advance. The GM recommended advance is 32 degrees. We set it where the dyno tells us it makes the most power. Not quite 32, but it's somewhere around. So that's all done. The oil pan is worth noting. I should have showed this when I made the first video. So circle track cars spend half of their time in the corners, and they're pretty good at getting around corners. They pull about 1 G in the corner, and the car's good at doing that, but the oil's not. So the oil wants to follow Newton's law of motion. When the car goes around the corner, the oil keeps going straight. So at 1 G, your oil would be 45 degrees up the side of your oil pan, and your oil pump would be sucking water or sucking air and pumping it into your bearings, and that's not good either. So the kick out in the pan forces the oil and jams it and keeps it in the bottom of the pan in through the corners as well. So what else is different in the race version? This is not the right carburetor. This is just my shop carburetor, and the wires are just shop stuff. This engine will make over 350 horsepower with a 2-barrel 500 CFM carburetor, and they all do. The spec engines, sealed engines, and they are completely sealed. We cannot take this engine apart or do anything to it without breaking the seals and having to get it resealed. And so they come complete and sealed, ready to go. You put a carburetor on them, set the timing and the things that I just mentioned, and you're ready to go. So I wanted to start it up and let it run for a minute, but just document how cool it sounds with these headers on it. These are not the headers that would be on it in the car. They're totally different. These are just my shop headers, enough so we can start it up in the shop. So let's do that and get Mike to make a little video of how nice it sounds. These are very mild engines. The camshaft is just 430, 460, 212, 218 degrees intake and exhaust duration. Most of the cams I put in street cars are more radical than this, but that's the cam they come with. It's very easy on the rest of the engine, and once again, they managed to pull RPM. I'm sure they're not making much power at 6,200, but circle track racers want the power coming out of the corner, so we gear the car to accomplish that. So this one's ready to go. I'm gonna, after this, take it off the stand, change the oil one more time. It's got brake-in oil on it now. We'll put new brake-in oil, new filter, and brake it in, and it'll be ready to go in the car and take Trevor to the front. That's the only place he wants to be. Thank you for watching Gold's Garage.